Breaking news coming into us from NBC. Actually, before that, let me just bring you a new post that we've had on Truth Social by Donald Trump. You can see there, he says, the whole of civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, there are different, smarter and less radicalized minds prevail. Maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. So that statement just released on Truth Social by Donald Trump in relation, of course, to that deadline that should expire at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, US, which is 1 a.m. British time, so our time, 1 a.m. Wednesday morning, where Donald Trump has said that if the Strait of Hormuz has not been reopened and there isn't a deal with the Iranians, then he would destroy countless Iranian infrastructure, including power plants, bridges and desalination plants as well. So that post on Truth Social. Let me bring you some more breaking news that's coming into us from NBC, our sister channel. Now, they've been reporting on Kharg Island. They're saying that the U.S. military has struck dozens of Iranian military targets on Kharg Island overnight. That's according to a U.S. official coming into us from NBC News. And the mission included U.S. airstrikes along the northern side of the island and did not include any U.S. troops on the ground, again, according to the U.S. official. They did not strike oil, but instead hit military bunkers and storage facilities, air defense systems, and other military facilities. And of course, Kharg Island, the key oil export hub for Iran. So details coming into us that the U.S. military has struck dozens of Iranian military targets on Kharg Island overnight. Let's go live to our international correspondent, Diana Magnay, who joins us now from northern Israel. Diana, a lot to take in with that statement on Truth Social by the president. But let's start with this report that we're getting about the U.S. military attacking dozens of Iranian military targets on Kharg Island overnight. Give us a little bit of insight into how significant this is.
I think given the fact that Kharg Island has been in Donald Trump's sights, not just actually in this war, but he's been talking about taking Kharg Island and its oil since the 1980s. But in terms of how this war might escalate, one of the things that people believe could happen is for the United States to take Kharg Island because, as you say, it is the main transport terminal, export terminal for around 90% of Iran's oil. So if Iran now actually is managing to get almost double the price for its oil because of its chokehold over the Straits of Hormuz, the fact that sanctions on Iranian oil have been lifted, if he manages to cut off the oil being exported by Iran through the few tankers that Iran allows out, he will essentially cut off their financial lifeline. And that comes alongside Israel and the US targeting all the other industrial pillars of the Iranian economy. So petrochemical sites that we've been seeing hit, especially over the last few days. Benjamin Netanyahu saying that 70% of its steel factories or ability to export had been hit. These are very, very important industries alongside oil and gas for Iran. And if you don't have the money at a certain point to pay the Revolutionary Guard people or the soldiers in the army or the Basij militia, you know, that is a point when the regime begins to crack, which is something that we're not really seeing at this stage. The problem with taking Kharg Island is that it's a small island up at the top of the Gulf, very close to the Iranian coastline, which would leave any US troops who do go on it, pretty much sitting ducks for whatever the Iranians can hit at them from the coast. And that is one of the, it would leave a sort of vulnerability, even if it would be a massive point of leverage for the United States. But as you say, it's 12 hours now until that deadline that Donald Trump has placed on Iran. And I think you're seeing a real exertion placed on the regime to try and come up with something that Donald Trump could construe as a deal before he decides to strike. And as he just read out in that Truth Social post, a whole civilization will die tonight. Those are extraordinary words, especially for the Iranian people who are so incredibly proud of their ancient civilization in Iran. And I'll just take you through a little bit else of what's been happening across the region. Israel has been striking railway infrastructure across Iran. They gave a warning in Persian today to Iranians not to use the railway networks until 9 p.m. tonight because they would be making strikes. And we understand they've hit a railway in Kharg in the north, a railway bridge in Kashan in the center, and also a motorway in the northwest of the country. They've also, 7 ballistic missiles have been launched towards Saudi Arabia, which has caused the Saudis to close the bridge that links them with Bahrain, and there's been damage from intercepts landing near energy plants there. Here in Israel, there have been strikes from Iran and also from Hezbollah, continuing overnight with 2 hits, intercepts, one in Nahariya, not far from here, actually, and one a bit further south, which they've been targeting a few times this week already, Petah Tikva, because there is a drone facility there. You know, the number of dead in Israel now is 23, 4 killed in a missile strike in Haifa on Sunday. 2 of those killed, only pulled out yesterday after a really long rescue operation. And we've just been speaking this morning to a family who lost a son in the campaign in Lebanon. And I think what you are seeing and feeling here in Israel is that it is a country that is stretched on multiple fronts. You have them fighting in Lebanon. You have deployments in the West Bank. You have ongoing conflict in Gaza. You have the Air Force striking Iran. And I think a lot of people are beginning to feel that certainly for troops in Lebanon, who have gone very much beyond the border, without the Air Force's full capacity to back them up because they are striking in Iran, you know, this is an overstretched military. And I can only say that if things do escalate in 12 hours' time, it will be even more complicated for everyone in this region.
Absolutely. Diana Magnay with the latest there from northern Israel. Diana, thank you. With me now is Middle East commentator Tara Kangarloo. Tara, there's so much to discuss and so much that keeps on happening. There's the Truth Social post by Donald Trump that we'll definitely get into. Let's just start with what we've seen happen on the ground. So these military strikes against military targets on Kharg Island, just remind us of the importance of that and the symbolism.
Of course, Kharg Island is essentially one of Iran's main terminals for its oil export. And don't forget the strategic location of Kharg Island, not too far from Bushehr, the province that essentially houses the only nuclear facility in Iran that is used for civilian use, for power generation. And this was a facility in Bushehr that was built by the Germans before the 1979 revolution, and then after was sort of revamped in a joint effort, rather, with the Russian support. And by the way, mind you, that the Russians have extracted over 100 of their personnel from the nuclear facility in Bushehr. And mind you, Barbara, that this is a facility that was hit on multiple occasions since the start of the war. So what happens in Kharg would not only have an impact on, of course, Iran's oil export, but also impact on what surrounds that island. And all the while, we should not forget the other islands, including Larak, that exists that sits in the narrowest point of the Strait of Hormuz. And that's an area that Iran has been using as a toll booth to charge these vessels that are crossing through the Strait of Hormuz. And I can imagine that, speaking with sources, whether or not the U.S. would put any form of boots on the ground, it might very well be from any one of these islands.
I mean, so we are seeing a sort of escalation militarily. So even if you don't listen to Donald Trump's words, we're seeing these things happen. But then you do listen to Donald Trump's words, and they're quite something. We had this latest statement on Truth Social. I mean, I'll just read you the line: "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again." I mean, it's properly apocalyptic language. We know he uses language in a strong way, but this is... It's quite something. I mean, what have you made of it? And also, what impact is it having from the people that you're still managing to speak to? What impact is it having in Iran itself?
Barbara, these are unprecedented words spoken by the commander-in-chief. I mean, the fact that he is saying a whole civilization will die tonight and then claim that we have, meaning the United States, complete and total regime change where different, smarter and less radicalized minds prevail. This is not true. A regime change has not happened in Iran because those in charge are, in fact, a younger and more emboldened version of the previous administration and the previous system. So the juxtaposition here for me is astounding. And this is something that we keep seeing. And then at the end, after essentially threatening that the whole civilization will die tonight, then he goes on saying, God bless the great people of Iran. And that itself, again, is a contradiction. And once again, it's important for our viewers to realize that we're talking about a nation of 90 million ordinary civilians, some of the most pro-West of societies in that entire region. Again, the people of that entire region, Barbara, as you and I have spent a lot of time covering the many countries there, want nothing different than those around the world. And their hopes and aspirations mirror that of millions of others in other countries. And I think this is what we're not focusing on. And today, as the Iranian people await this apocalyptic event unfold, as Donald Trump has been saying, they're wondering what's next for them. They see themselves caught between, again, a repressive regime that has not changed, but it's, again, at its most emboldened form, and a threat of obliteration.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing Donald Trump blur that line between the Iranian people and the regime and more. Tara, we're going to have to leave it there. We will discuss this again later on in the day. Thank you.